With the impending Chapter 2 update of Scrap Mechanic Survival supposedly happening sometime in 2024, I decided to make a video of the 15 things I hope to see in that update. Kicking off the list is the ability to see your world seed in the menu. So if I go in here and load up my survival menu, you'll notice that I have all these different saves here, but I can't see the world seed. The reason that's useful and would be useful here is because sometimes people just want to see your world seed and play on it, especially if it's a cool one. The way to do it right now involves a complex process, which I couldn't even follow along with because the YouTube videos that I found that were showing it were outdated and I couldn't even find the files that it was telling me to update or the lines in the files when I did find them to update the way that it said to update them. So right now it would be awesome if right here, like under the date or something, it would just say World Seed, like it does on other games like Valheim, as an example, has the World Seed right on there. And several other games I've played will have a World Seed if there's a randomly generated world. And I could just share that with my friends, or you could share it with your friends. The second thing I hope to see is the ability to increase the field of view beyond 90. I typically play, since I'm playing in first person, and even in games when I'm playing in third person, I like to run my field of view up to 105, sometimes 110, depending on the game. Right now, the game is capped at 90, which kind of makes you feel like you're almost like in a fishbowl, or you have like a fisheye vision where you can only see directly in front of you, and you can't really see things coming from the side. Being able to see just a little bit wider range would definitely be helpful, especially when playing in first person. Third thing I want to see is more customization for survival mode. So I typically play at the default of whatever it is when I play the game the first time, but after playing a game for a while, you'll kind of come across some things that maybe you want to tweak. Right now, the only settings that are possible for gameplay are the difficulty, which is just easy and normal. And from what I've seen on easy mode, the only difference is that the enemies do 50% less damage. The quality of the physics is just gonna, I've not messed with that at all, but I've heard that if you lower it down, you'll end up having things that just don't work properly. So there just needs to be more customization. Things like being able to determine like the hunger and thirst drain rate, how much damage you deal versus how much damage the enemies deal, maybe your HP rate versus the enemy's HP rate, stamina drain, the amount of resources you get from gathering. So maybe you want to just get resources quicker, or even the timing of things like how quickly the crops grow. All these kinds of things that could probably easily have settings put into the game would be definitely awesome for the future of the game and for keeping people coming back, because I know games that have more customization in their survival options are definitely games that people tend to come back to and play more often. Next up on the list is going to be the world terrain needs to feel more sticky, or at least tires need to have more stickiness, and even pretty much anything. You'll probably notice that if you've driven around a lot, you'll notice that your car feels like it fishtails. I'm not even going that fast because the engine's not cranked up, but the car feels like it's fishtailing a little bit. If you place your car on a like even a slight incline, or place like a resource collector or anything on a slight incline, it'll oftentimes just start sliding away. And I've often said that the game needs more friction, but that's actually not the right term. The right term, the only thing I could come up with was stickiness. The world feels like it currently has like a layer of, I guess, like a thin layer of black ice. Because let me just crank the engine up here, and you'll notice when I'm driving around, it just look how my car has like no control. It's like I'm sliding on a patch of ice while driving. And I know the engine's cranked up here, but even in normal situations with the engine not so jacked up, it'll do the same thing. And it's definitely frustrating when you get out of your car or you place down a resource collector while you're gathering resources, come back and you can't find it because it's slid down a hill and sometimes into the water. So adding more stickiness to the terrain, or just making it feel like it's less of, I guess, like slippery would be the right term, would definitely be helpful and just make the game overall more enjoyable. Heading down here to the water, a feature that would definitely be cool, and this was something that somebody just recently suggested to me and brought up to me on my most recent stream, and it's something I thought about in the past but just hadn't thought about recently, is water physics. So right now there's water in the game, but the only thing that water does really is when you go under it, you'll lose your breath eventually and you'll start taking damage. There's no physics for the water in terms of being able to like drive boats over. So I have a boat on, it might be on this save, and essentially all it is it feels like it's driving a car. Like there's no real water physics. You can't use the water to move or anything like that. Like you can't move the water around or anything. It's essentially just there to, I guess, keep the resources under the ground, under the water, and you can use it to water your crops. But it would definitely be cool if the water had proper physics so that you could use it for, maybe you could do hydroelectric power, or specifically just for using boats and stuff like that to make it feel, maybe instead of using the thrusters, you want to use a paddle boat or something like that. So maybe you could use your hammer, or maybe you could craft oars so that you could actually paddle through the water and just make it feel a little bit more realistic. The next thing I would like to see, I'm not sure how likely this is to happen, but it would certainly be cool to have. And it's something that never came to the game that I had been playing for the last couple of years a lot, which was Grounded, is weather. Scrap Mechanic has essentially the same weather pattern as Grounded, where it's basically just a night and day cycle. There's no hot, there's no cold, there's no rain, there's no snow, nothing like that. And I'm not asking for like wild weather patterns or anything like that, or even having like seasons, although they would be cool. I'm looking for just something like maybe just having a little bit of water. If it rained periodically, maybe once a week or something like that, or every couple of days, it would be cool for a couple of reasons. One, it could water your crops so you don't have to worry about doing it. Two, you could be able to have like a rain collector to collect water to be able to use so you don't have to always pump the water. And then third, if there's hay bots around, hay bots, if you actually put water on them, will they'll kind of like freeze up. It's almost like they're getting shocked because I guess because they're robots, while the tote bots can swim in it. The hay bots, if you hit them with a bucket of water, they will just freeze up a little bit and get stunned for a few seconds. So having something like rain in the game would be pretty cool, because that would mean that if the hay bots are, like as an example, these hay bots would not be able to be attacking right now because they'd be kind of frozen up. So it'd be easy farming out in the world, but it also could add a variation where if you go into a building where there's hay bots, they won't chase you outside because they know if they go outside and get wet, then they'll end up just getting frozen and getting stun locked, and you'll be able to kill them pretty easily. So I think that would add a little bit of variation. Next up on the list is going to be a scrap chest. So when you start the game off, you only have access to a little craft bot that's here at the mechanic station. You also have the one that's over in the craft spaceship. You just have these couple little items here. And one thing I think that will be very useful, especially early game, would be a scrap chest. So the first chest you can craft are these things over here, which are going to require the craft bot. And then of course you can make the bigger chests. But you not going to be able to make these very early on because they require the resources they require are going to take a little bit of time to gather yourself. Even if you know what you're doing, it's going to take a little bit of time to gather them. But for a new player, they're certainly not going to be able to. So the thing I thought of would be, there's one of two options. One would be to take the little wooden storage boxes that you find inside the little produce stands. And this is something that I did on the two friends and I built like a survival hardcore mod a couple years ago. And in that, we took those boxes and they had 4 storage slots. So something like that, or even better, will be a scrap chest. So I know they said they're going to be adding like a scrap shotgun. They already added the scrap cars or tutorial, but adding a little scrap chest that maybe has one row of inventory here, but you could just make it out of scrap wood would be really useful, because you could just store your items at the beginning of the game. Because as we all know, if you've played this game, inventory management is a little bit of a challenge, which leads me into the next thing, which is going to be a bigger backpack. So the backpack in this game only has 30 slots. And if you're playing by yourself, that becomes you'll fill your backpack up very quickly. Even when you have like chests on the car and stuff like that, if you go out looting, you can fill them really quickly. But like more specifically, before you have chests, if you go out looting, like if I go into a building, I'll end up filling it up because there's so many different items. And I think having the ability to get a bigger backpack, I'm not necessarily saying give us the 50 slots right at the beginning. Although I will say, playing the Fant mod recently, I think it has like 60 slots. It's got like double this, and I still fill it up. But it's because there's so many different resources, and because the stack sizes are not that big. So that's kind of like, to go along with it, I would like to see the ability to upgrade your backpack. So maybe there's like 3 upgrades or 2 upgrades that increase it by 10 rows each, and also at the same time increasing the stack sizes. So the box only go up to 256. I don't know if that's because of the math of the game. A lot of other things only go up to 20 or 50. Having like flowers and stuff like that go up to 99 would be pretty nice. Or if everything just went to 256 at a minimum, that would be great. It would definitely help out with inventory management, because it's just a nightmare managing your inventory in this game, especially when you're playing at the beginning of the game. Just coming out of the tutorial zone alone, you'll end up having to leave stuff behind because there's too much. Along the same lines is going to be a sort button for your backpack and your storage. This is pretty standard in most games, but when you imagine you have a different item in all these different slots here, and they're all over the place and jumbled, just being able to click a button up here that just says sort my inventory would be extremely useful. And the same thing goes with chests, because there's nothing more frustrating than you dump a bunch of stuff in the chest, and then you have to like figure out where everything is, and they're all over the place, because when you deposit things, they don't go into, it's not like they line up properly. They just go into the next slot. So if I put these flowers in here, they just go there. If I put these blocks in here, the blocks did stack, but if I put like the paint in here, it just goes here. And so essentially you're just dumping it into the next available slot. So that would definitely make inventory management a lot easier. Bigger stacks, bigger stack sizes, a bigger backpack, and the ability to store, have a storage button. A sort button on your storage and your backpack. Next up is going to be a recycle bot. So the Fant mod has a recycle bot, and what's cool about the Fant mod recycle bot is you can take stuff. As an example, let's say I took this scrap driver seat here, and it's made out of scrap metal blocks, scrap wood blocks, and circuit boards. If I throw this in the recycler in the Fant mod, what'll happen is it'll give me back the 10 scrap metal, the 100 scrap wood, and the 2 circuit boards. Now, after having tried it out, I would say, I let Fant know this myself today, and I've kind of shared it on my stream when I was playing it. It feels like to me that the current recycler in it, it's really awesome. And I think the way it's designed is intentional for it to be where you can basically just get through the grind of the early game, which is perfectly fine. But in the survival game, what I would like to see added to the survival mode, vanilla survival, will be something more along the lines where maybe you get like a first version of it that would let you recycle like early game stuff just into scrap materials. Maybe there's a scrap recycler, and then maybe later on you can upgrade it so that it's more a little bit later game, because that would definitely, it'll make it useful for things like where you just go like the produce stands. You go to the produce stand, and if you're me, I walk up to a produce stand and guess what I do? I just start breaking everything that's one-shottable in here, because there's nothing I can do with it. I'm not going to build with it because it's going to get destroyed pretty easily. In the Phantom mod, what I did was take it apart, put it to the recycler, and I just got back a ton of resources. Now, I will say, like I said, it feels like it's a little overpowered, because just tearing down like 2 of those little produce stands, I got so many resources, I don't think I'm going to have to farm for anything. Tons of glue. I got tons of glue. I got tons of scrap, or tons of metal 1, tons of scrap wood and stuff like that. So that would be cool to add, and especially if it had, you could upgrade it over time using different things, not just like being able to max it out at the beginning. Next up is going to be the ability to craft component kits or increasing the drop rate. So if you played Scrap Mechanic, you'll know that what's going to end up happening is, and just looking at my inventory, I have 2 circuit boards and 1 component kit here. If I go out and loot a bunch of buildings, I'm inevitably going to come back with probably somewhere around like 2 to 3 to 4 times the circuit boards I need as component kits. Circuit boards are only useful in a couple of things, whereas component kits are useful in many things. You use them to upgrade pretty much everything. They're needed to build a lot of the most desired things in the game. And the overall drop rate for them probably could be increased, or I don't even care about that. I'd rather just see if we could take the circuit boards or some other resource and turn them into component kits, because it would just make more use for the circuit boards. Next up is going to be lights defaulting to white. So if I turn the lights on my car here, you'll notice that they're white. Now, for some reason, the headlights, and I don't know why, it's the light. Usually the lights you find in the produce stands are default to the white, but the headlights for some reason default to yellow. And the problem with that is they give off very little light even when you crank them up to like level 10. And I end up having to paint them anyway. And it's not always easy to get the paint tool when you end up having a car. And my driving here is absolutely amazing. I know you guys are all appreciating it. So just having the lights default to white, that's something very simple. And I think it would just be useful, because it would just save a little bit of time, and it would just save a step of having to paint them white. Let people paint them a different color if they want to paint them a different color. Next is going to be more food recipes. So the Fant mod and also the Crashlanders mod that I played, both had a bunch of different foods added in them. This game currently has, you can just eat the raw foods that you grow, or you can turn them into 2 different kinds of sandwich to eat. And there's just so many opportunities here. Like you could make banana milk or blueberry milk, or you could make orange juice with the oranges. You could make a fruit salad. You can make fruit juice with the different fruits and stuff like that. You could make a vegetable salad. I'm just thinking off the top of my head all the different things you could do that would be cool, using either the cook bot or just using maybe some other kind of bot, or maybe there's like I don't know. The cook bot would probably be the easiest thing to do. Just put it in there and add the different recipes that you would unlock over time by collecting different crops. Next is going to be the ability to parry or block. So if you get in combat, what ends up happening is it's basically this. I hit the enemy, I back up. I hit the enemy, I back up. I hit the enemy, I back up. There is no, or if you have a gun, you just shoot the enemy and run away. If they added the ability to block with your hammer, which I believe we might have did in our mod, or I know it's available, and I think you can do it in creative, and I think we did do it in the mod that we created, which unfortunately we haven't updated in a while. But just being able to block and specifically parry would be great. So early in the game, when you don't have access to one of the spud guns, being able to block the haybot attacks or parry them would be awesome. It would just make combat feel a little bit more meaningful, and it would just make the overall feel of the game just a little bit better. And then the last one's going to be upgrading your armor or adding armor to the game. So right now, obviously, you can get the spud shotgun, you get the spud gun, you can get the spudling gun, but there's no way to increase your armor. And I think the perfect way to do that would be to use the dress bot, where instead of just having the cosmetics that you can craft in here, maybe make these things where they actually have some type of stats associated with them. So the green cosmetics maybe give you 10% armor or something like that. The second level ones would give you, which are the purple ones would give you maybe 20% armor. Maybe the legendaries give you 30% armor, or maybe each of the different sets has a different bonus. Like I have the engineer set on. Maybe that gives me the ability to craft things and use a little bit less resources. Maybe there's one that makes you run a little bit faster. Maybe there's one that lets you do more damage. Just different kinds of things to add a little bit more variety to the game would be definitely appreciated. So those are the things that I would like to see added in the big update, or the Chapter 2 update for Scrap Mechanic Survival. One thing I didn't mention that maybe some of you are thinking about is what about optimization? I didn't mention that because they said that's the reason the update has currently been delayed. So I'm assuming there's going to be lots of optimization. But if there's anything I missed, let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully you're looking forward to Scrap Mechanic Chapter 2 as much as I am. If you want to see more Scrap Mechanic content, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you found this video enjoyable, make sure to hit the like button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.